Okay. All right. So we talked about absolute threshold, which basically says is like the minimum stimulation that we need to notice something. Okay. Now, so absolute threshold is kind of like bottom up processing. All right. It's like starts with sensation. It's sensation followed by perception. Just as long as the sensation is strong enough, we perceive it. As we should know at this point in this class, though, is nothing in this class is ever like 100%. There are no certainties in this class. So there's another theory that goes along more with top-down processing called signal detection theory. That basically says that there is no single absolute threshold for sensation. Everybody is different, all right, and everybody responds differently to stimuli. And what we notice is dependent upon what we expect, what we're looking for, our perceptual set of the environment, okay, how alert we are, how tired we are, if you're drunk, if you're stoned, if you're, this, if you're that, okay, what our motivations are. So signal detection theory says that absolute threshold is incorrect. That there's no absolute threshold, that this is all just dependent kind of on what we are looking for. All right. This goes more along with like a term that we would associate with this would be selective attention. Okay, because you all know, like when you're selectively attending to something, we miss a lot of other stuff. Even if it reaches our absolute threshold, it may go to the brain, but we might not process it. For instance, some of you all may be watching TV right now, right? And you may be hearing me talk, but it's not like you're not actually processing it. So for instance, like a new mother might be able to sleep through like a train going by her house, but may wake up to like the slightest little whimper from their baby, because that's what they're listening for. Okay. Just an aside, how many of you all have like a parent that like wakes up if you like go downstairs late at night, like they're gonna wake up, see what you're doing, like no matter, like they wake up to everything. Yeah. Sadly, no. Oh well. Okay. Yeah, that's how my mom was. Like I could not ever sneak out or sneak in or anything because she would wake up immediately. Um, but yeah, Darsh, maybe your parents are more like my dad. My dad, like, it's kind of funny. Um, when I was in college, but my two of my younger siblings, Boo and Lindsay, were still in high school, probably like 17 and 15 or something like that. And my mom was out of town. My dad was the only one. My dad was in town, was home, and he went to bed. And my dad is a heavy sleeper. And Boo and Lindsay had a massive party downstairs. And we did not, like, our house was normal size, but like my parents' room was right by the stairs. Massive party downstairs. And my dad slept through the entire thing. He finally woke up when Boo and Lindsay had to go upstairs to wake him up because the police were there. Okay. So the party was big enough for them to get the cops called on them, but my dad slept through the entire thing. So it has nothing to do with this. It's just kind of funny. Okay. All right. So signal detection theory, what we notice is dependent upon what we are looking for. What we sense dependent upon what we are expecting. Okay. Any questions on that? Pretty straightforward. All right. Now, so absolute threshold is the minimum stimulation that we need to notice something. Okay. And now, even if it reaches our absolute threshold, we might not notice it because of signal detection theory. Okay. But so we also need to talk about the minimum stimulation that we need to be able to notice a change in a stimulus. Okay. This is what is called difference threshold. Difference threshold, or the just noticeable difference, the JND, right, is the smallest amount of change in a stimulus in something that we are where the smallest amount of change where we are able to notice that the stimulus has changed. Okay. So how much do you have to turn up the volume on the TV to notice that it has gotten louder? If the TV is really quiet, you only have to turn it up a little bit to notice that it's gotten louder. But if the TV is already really loud, you actually have to turn it up a lot more, right? Okay, all right. If it's really cold outside, temperature only has to go up by a little bit to notice that it's gotten warmer. Okay, if it's 25 degrees, you might be able to tell the difference between 25 degrees and 27 degrees. But if it's 100 degrees, it has to go up by more to notice that it's gotten hotter, right? If I get an inch cut off of my hair and Olivia gets an inch cut off of her hair, which one are you more likely to notice? Yeah, mine. Why? Hey, yeah, yeah. Girls have longer hair. All right. So the larger the stimulus, the more change is needed for us to notice that there has been a change. All right. So I could get probably just a little bit cut off, and you would notice. But the girls in here with long hair, all right, or the guys in here with long hair, okay, would have to get more cut off to notice that there has been a difference. Now, the reason it is like this, the reason it is based on the intensity of the stimuli is, hold on a sec, Mr. Kirby just texted me. All right, based on the intensity of the stimuli is because difference threshold is kind of governed by a principle, what is called Weber's law, or Weber's law, or Weber-Fechner, but you can just call it Weber's law. Weber's law, it's like an algorithm. I don't know how it works. Okay, but Weber's law says that the perception of a difference in a stimuli is based around a constant percentage. All right. To perceive a difference, it's based around a constant proportional change, but not an amount, not a set amount. So for instance, and you don't need to know these percentages, but like with weight, for us to notice that something has gotten heavier or lighter, okay, the weight of it has to change by 2%. So let's say that we're lifting weights, okay, and you're lifting weights. You're not trying to get jacked. All right, you're just trying to build lean muscle. All right, just like Aiden there with the weight behind him. Um, and so you're just like repping 10 pounds over and over. All right, and after a while, you decide that you want to go up in weight, but not too much, just enough that you would notice that there was a difference. If the difference threshold for weight is a 2% change, how much weight would you have to add to 10 pounds to know that it had gotten heavier? 0.2 pounds. Yep. Okay. You'd only have to add 0.2 pounds to be able to notice that it had gotten heavier. Right. It amazes me how long it takes. Like, and last class had a bunch of people who said 2 pounds. That'd be 20%. Okay. All right. Now, what if we're lifting 100 pounds? How many pounds would we have to add on there? 2. Yep. All right. 2% of 100 is 2. Okay. So it doesn't like difference threshold is not necessarily set in stone. Again, a lot of it is so this is like the minimum stimulant, the minimum we need to notice a change. That doesn't mean that we will notice a change. All right. Because signal detection theory says that what we notice is dependent upon what we are looking for. All right. Okay. Are there any questions about that? Okay. All right. Last thing on here, sensory adaptation. Um, After our sensory receptors are exposed to a stimulus for a long time, um, they kind of get tired. And when they're exposed to a stimulus for a long time, they kind of start to ignore it. This is called sensory adaptation. Okay. When nerve cells are constantly stimulated, they stop responding to it. All right. This is why, sorry. This is why you don't notice your clothes all day. Or if you're wearing a watch, you don't notice it. Or, if you put your sunglasses on your head and then you're trying to find them, you're like patting all around, like shit, where am I? And you just like don't even feel them on your head anymore. Okay. That's sensory adaptation. It's the receptors have stopped responding. Same reason why when you get into the water, it might be cold at first, but you get used to it. Okay, that's sensory adaptation. Or if you all notice when you go over to somebody's house that you've never been to before, it always smells really weird, but your house smells normal. Yeah. Okay. Your house smells weird to them, right? It's just because your senses have it. Your sense of smell has adapted to the smell of your house. It doesn't respond to it anymore. All right. But other people's houses, it does respond to. No, you don't manually blink or breathe. I don't even know. What do you mean by that? Oh no. That's more what's called habituation, kind of. But those are also just automatic functions. And so, there's so much stuff that goes on within us that we don't even think about doing. So that's not really adaptation. It's just kind of normal body functions. Because it would be exhausting if like we had to focus our cognitive energy on like every 3 second, 4 seconds, you had to be like blink, blink, like that'd be tough. Okay. All right. So anybody got any questions about that? Sensory receptors stop responding after constant stimulation. All right, so that's the last little bit of stuff that that is on the quiz. We'll do sensory interaction later. I don't know how I get so far behind like the other classes, but do you all feel like I go too slow over stuff? No, or like, do I give like too many examples for things? Because I'm always behind, and I've always I'm always, even when it was other teachers, I was behind. And okay, I think it's working fine. Okay, all right. Just as long as you all don't mind, it, like the last day of each unit, I'm gonna have to be like, all right, we're way behind. So sometimes we will have to skip over some stuff because I go slower. Okay, all right. Now we got to talk about. So we've talked about what information gets in. Now we got to talk about how we understand it. What our brain does to understand the information that comes in. Okay, what is called perceptual organization, the understanding of it. That says understanding. And this is where, like, as we've talked about, what comes in, yeah, Samara, this is new stuff. This is not going to be on the quiz. Okay. What comes in is not always the reality of what we see. Like information, our brain twists stuff around a lot to make sense of it. That's why it's called making sense is perception. It's making sensation into something meaningful. All right, so early field of psychology, founded by a German guy named Max Wertheimer. What is called Gestalt? Gestalt is the German word for whole. And Gestalt psychology is a way of looking at how we group things in our environment. Basically, what Gestalt psychology says is that rather than seeing the individual pieces of something, we perceive the whole. We perceive the entirety of the thing rather than looking at the individual parts. It is another example of top-down processing. Basically, everything we're going to talk about from now on is top-down processing. Okay? And we do this because we want to give meaning to everything in our environment. And so we use points of reference, we compare it to other things, all right, and we look to see how we can group things together. And what's that? The whole may exceed the sum of its parts. What that means is the whole of something might not be reflected in the parts. Okay. How we see the entirety of something might not be the reality of it. Just like sometimes how we perceive a person, like how we think a person is not how they actually are. Okay. The Gestalt is kind of like that. So, like for instance, this is a famous picture. You've seen it before. Somebody first block today like was arguing with me about this, but like it is an example of Gestalt. What do you see in this picture right here? A dog. Okay. Now, there's not actually a dog there, but rather than rather than our brain just seeing a bunch of black dots, our brain says, all right, the black dots don't mean anything. So what could we what could it actually be? If you don't like there is a the dog is right here. Okay, like there's its head. It's like leaning down, like drinking out of a puddle. Okay, there's its head, front left leg, back left leg, back right leg. Okay, it's kind of right there. Okay, I mean, I guess you could see a horse, but a dog makes more sense because it would be like a Dalmatian. Okay, all right. Well, I mean, however you organize it, however you understand it, okay, is Gestalt, is top-down processing, because we're kind of comparing it to what we already know. I'm just telling you that the picture itself is supposed to be a dog. Like that's like I didn't like make this up. Okay, but whatever you're seeing is fine. Okay, as long as you're seeing it as something that is Gestalt, because that's giving meaning to things that are meaningless, which is all the black dots. Okay, you got a dog here leaning down to drink. There's like a tree right there. Okay, so there are a couple of different Gestalt principles that we need to know. One that students have a hard time with, and I don't know why, is what is called figure ground. Figure ground is a way in which we organize what we are looking at, versus the background. All right. What we are looking at, what we focus on is the figure. Everything around it that we're not focusing on is the ground. Figure ground. All right. So think about, I mean, look at this picture right here. Right? What's the figure in this picture? The boat. And then everything else is the ground. Have you all had a bunch of little bugs get into your house? Like they're like kind of like stink bugs. They look like stink bugs. Has anybody seen those? I don't know how they're getting into my house, but like I killed like 10 of them yesterday. There's one flying around right now. Okay. Um, this is my ADD, guys. All right. So figure ground, what we are looking at versus the background. So for instance, we have these figure ground illusions. This one right here, you've seen this one already, okay? But if you focus on the white, what do you see? Two people, two faces, okay? And then if you focus on the black, what do you see? A vase or a chalice, whatever you want to call it. And it's kind of cool. Like if you look at that picture and like shift your focus from black to white, it does, like you can tell, like it's almost like they are changing their it's almost like they're changing their distance from you when you do that. Okay, it's like as soon as you shift, like the white goes in the background, the black comes out ahead. What about this one right here? When you focus on the black, what do you see? Steve Jobs, yep. And then if you focus on the white, you see an apple. It looks like a bite got taken out of it. Okay, so pretty straightforward. All right, here's another one right here. What do you notice here? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. If you focus on the black, you should see people looking at each other. Okay, there's like their faces. Okay. If you focus on the white, you see like what looks like chess pieces. All right. This is how camouflage works. Camouflage makes you into the ground rather than the figure. All right, here's another example, FedEx logo. Okay, if you look at the letters, you see the letters, but if you focus on the white, what stands out the most? The arrow. Yep. Okay. All right. Big Ten, old Big Ten logo. Toblerone logo. What do you see in the Toblerone logo? The bear. Yep. This Toblerone's made in the city of Bern, Switzerland, which means bear. All right, and then the Pittsburgh Zoo. All right, if you make the white area your figure, what do you see? Yeah, or a lion, probably. Yep. And then if you make the black, you see a tree with and some birds. Okay, so figure ground is just what we are focusing on. And again, it's kind of cool. Like if you focus on the black, it looks like the black like moves out towards you. Focus on the white, it looks like they're like shifting places. All right. Any questions on that? Got a couple, three more things. We should be done in about probably about 4 minutes. All right. All right. The other Gestalt principle is the principles of grouping. Um, We have an automatic tendency to group things in our environment, all right, to make sense of them, okay? And to basically to link certain things together. So and to find like continuity. The three that we're going to talk about: proximity, continuity, and closure. Okay, so like this impossible figure right here, right? Our brain tries to find a way to make this possible. So we see certain things, certain parts of it as being continuous and whatnot. All right, and then these right here, the circle and the rectangle, even though they are not complete, our brain fills in those gaps right there. Okay, these are what are called grouping principles. And these are really easy. Like the names of them basically tell you what they are. They're also kind of boring. So, all right, proximity. Proximity is how close something is to you. We tend to group things together that are close to one another. All right, so instead of seeing 36 individual circles here, we see a box of circles. Instead of seeing 36, we see, okay, 3 sets of circles. All right, we say, all right, these ones are together, these ones are together, these ones, because they are close to one another. People sitting at tables together, we group them together. That's why, like, you're sitting at a big table that has multiple groups at it. We automatically like always leave a space in between those groups so that we know who's in what group. Okay, think about like when you're sitting in the cafeteria and there are multiple friend groups sitting at a table, like you always leave a seat in between, right? Okay, or like these 3 guys walking across the road, all right, group them together because they're close to one another. Does anybody know who those 3 guys are? The Beatles. Yep. Can anybody name the 4 of them? The guy in the front is okay. Good. Yeah, Nicole got it. All right. John, Paul, George, and Ringo. All right. John Lennon, Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney, George Harrison. Now, anybody know what album cover this is? Abbey Road. All right, good. Okay, their last one. Yes. Yep. Okay, all right, proximity. So we group things together that are close to one another. Continuity. We have a tendency to perceive smooth patterns. Even when like our brain like fills in a pattern, even when there is not one. So like here for this logo for whatever it is, we see this line, this key underneath here as being continuous, even though we can't see the part that's underneath right there. Okay. And then if these weren't separated by the different colors, we would see this as being a continuous group and this as being a continuous group. Right? For this one, even though there's not anything here, we perceive a continuous line right there. And then like in the UNC logo, what's the continuity in the UNC logo? Why are we able to see it as NC? What do we do? What does our brain do? Where do we see the continuity? Anyone? Okay. All right. Even though it's not there, our brain wants to go with kind of the easiest possible option. So it sees that as being the most continuous option. and then those as being the most continuous option. All right? Continuity, our tendency to perceive smooth, continuous patterns. Same thing with like lines in the middle of a road. When it's like a dashed line, we see it as a continuous pattern. All right? And then lastly, closure. Our brain wants to automatically fill in gaps. All right? It goes off what it's expecting to see. Again, these are all top-down processing. So even though there's not a triangle here, our brain fills in those gaps to make one. Same thing with the panda right here, and the dog right here, and the book right here. Okay. It also works with sound. At our brain, especially with like music and whatnot, we want it to like if something starts, we want it to finish. And so, for instance, if I go, Landon, thank you. I think you're the first. Okay. All right. So it's easier to do in class. All right. But even if you didn't actually clap and go, okay, I bet most of you all in your head went, boom, boom. Okay. All right. Because we know that that's the ending of that. All of us know what that is. And we want to close it out. So our brain automatically fills that in. Okay. All right. So those are really simple. Anybody got any questions about any of that stuff? Okay. All right. So now on to the quiz. First off, before we do this, so if you are missing work, if you have late work that you haven't turned in yet, I need late work in by Wednesday. Okay? Because I'm going backpacking all weekend next weekend, and I won't be home until Monday. I'll be out on the Appalachian Trail for a couple days, and I will not be grading work. And so I want to get all that in before that. Okay, so need that in by Wednesday. All right, so for the quiz, okay, you're going to go, you can access it either on your main page, all right, or the link is on the Unit 3 page, or you can go to quizzes, however you want. Okay. So,